Stories of Great Christians. From its radio studios in Chicago, the Moody Bible Institute greets its friends everywhere with Chapter 24 in the transcribed story of Florence Nightingale, the Lady with the Lamp. Florence Nightingale's authority as superintendent of nurses in the Crimea, as well as in Turkey, was finally established in a dispatch to all officers in March 1856. Her enemies bitterly resented this victory and continued to invent petty persecutions wherever they could. Dr. Hall delayed her requisitions and raised points which had been settled months before. Mr. Davis gossiped and scolded. The head nurse at the General Hospital in the Crimea flatly refused to take orders from Miss Nightingale and sent in her resignation. In the midst of all this, Florence remained calm and cool-headed, determined to endure everything in order that the nursing establishment might emerge at the end of the war as a unified undertaking worthy of respect. That end, it seemed, was to come very soon. Peace conferences were even then in session.
I went to Balaclava to see what I could do to get Nurse Bridgman to stay on. But though I pleaded and begged, she would not submit, and departed with her group, leaving the hospital unstaffed. I determined to replace her with Bermondsey nurses. Dr. Hall agreed to this, and one snowy afternoon I went to inspect the nurses' huts. To my surprise, I found the doors locked. Why, the door's locked. Boy, run around to the other ones and try all the doors.
All right, Mom.
What did you find?
This one's locked too, Miss Nightingale.
Oh, so is this. They must all be locked.
What are we going to do now?
Well, we'll have to get the keys, that's all. I'm surprised that Dr. Hall didn't have them unlocked or send me the keys. He knew I was coming here this afternoon. Or maybe that's why he locked them. Because he knew I was coming.
What now?
Well, you see that small building at the foot of the hill? It has an office in it. Run down there and ask Dr. Hall for the keys.
Yes, Mom.
And tell him I sent you to ask and that I'm up here waiting in the snow.
Yes, Mom.
What did you find out?
He said he gave the keys to Mr. Fitzgerald.
To the purveyor? Oh, but there's no reason for that. Oh, well, Mr. Fitzgerald is across the way in the big hospital building. Run along.
I'll be back as soon as I can.
Well, don't wear yourself out. You don't have to run like that.
I'm sorry, Mum. He wouldn't let me take the keys. He said he'd send them over with a messenger.
Oh, no. Well, I guess we'll just have to wait then. Here, sit down on this rock and get your breath.
Oh, my. I ran so fast.
I could see you sprinting up the hill.
Sure is snowing, ain't it?
Surely is.
5 o'clock by the tower. We've been waiting here all hour, Mum.
A whole hour.
They're never going to send them keys.
We'll wait and see, that's all.
You know what, Miss Nightingale? Looks to me like them men would like for you to go home. Forget about all this. Been thinking of the nastiest tricks.
I know.
Wish I was a little bigger. I'd show that Dr. Hall a thing or two.
No, we'll have no insubordination.
6 o'clock, Miss Nightingale.
I'm getting worried about you. You'd better take another run around the huts and get warmed up again.
But you haven't run around at all yet, Miss Nightingale. You've got snow all over your cape, especially on the shoulders and on the top of your head.
I don't have much strength to knock it off.
They shouldn't make you white like this. It's not right. Wasn't too long ago you were sick.
Oh, 2 hours. We've already waited here in the snow for more than 2 hours.
It's a criminal shame.
Oh, dear. Oh, look. Isn't that someone coming up the path now?
Oh, looks like it is.
Well, at last. Has he... Yes. Yes, he has the ring of keys. In the course of time, the Bermondsey nurses arrived. They were shocked at the state of the general hospital, which had been under Dr. Hall's direct control from the beginning. As one of the nurses told me,
"We had to spend 2 days scrubbing the floors and disinfecting, and then we spent 3 days washing up the patients, laundering the blankets and sheets, and getting rid of lice, Miss Nightingale."
I don't doubt that. I noticed when I was here before that the patients were actually grimy with dirt.
And the state they were in from bed sores, you wouldn't believe it. One man was so bad it took a nurse 6 hours just to dress his sores.
Poor fellow.
I noticed that Dr. Hall came in for a visit of inspection this morning.
Well, if he's willing to be honest. Oh, here comes Dr. Hall now.
Oh.
I wonder what he'll have to
Yes,
say.
I wonder what he's got to say.
Terrible. What a state of affairs. I've never seen a place in such a condition.
Why, what do you mean, Dr. Hall?
Things are already in a frightful mess. I'll have you know, Miss Nightingale, I'm giving order to have it all put back in the same admirable order it was in previously. What a state of affairs.
Poor fellow. He's only making a fool of himself, Miss Nightingale. We all know better than to believe that.
In April, peace was declared to the Allied armies. British and Russian soldiers began hobnobbing in the taverns, and Lord Panmure began writing the commander about the importance of getting the men home without beards. I sent the nurses home in detachments. The hospital at Kulali collapsed, and I went there to wind up its affairs. At the end of June 1st, I returned to Scutari to find the camp deserted. Inkerman Cafe was empty, and in the hospital only a few convalescents remained, where once rows of sick men had lain. Aunt May and I talked.
"Well, Florence, at last you can rest. Dr. Sutherland says you must. He insists upon it as your physician."
Well, I'm not free to do as I please even yet, Aunt May. Whenever I look out this window at the cemetery, well, I have a debt to those dead men lying there.
A debt?
Yes. I've come to feel almost like a mother to the courageous men who died in this war. Thousands and thousands of them, victims of criminally bad system. They didn't die from wounds, Aunt May. They died of disease, preventable disease.
But you've given so much already, Florence.
What have I accomplished? The decisions that I made are being unmade. The reforms I was able to put through when the emergency was on us have been revoked. One and all the officials are going back to the old ways, to the old established routines that killed the men, and are still killing them.
You mustn't let those things trouble you now,
I can't
dear.
help it. I'm haunted. And a failure, Aunt May. That cause is lost.
Oh, it is not lost. Florence Nightingale, if you could know what's happened to the public mind during the years of this war, you certainly wouldn't say that.
The public mind.
Before you came here to Scutari and became a heroine, a nurse was no better considered than a vulgar woman of the streets. Now nurses are respected. The whole profession has a new name. Why? Because it has the image of Florence Nightingale stamped on it forever.
Aunt May, you're excited. I don't deserve
And the
all-
British soldiers. How did people feel about them until you came along and taught the officials to treat them like Christians?
Well, I'll admit there's been some change there.
Not long ago, the soldiers were the scum of the earth. Now people admire them, their courage, their endurance, their loyalty. And who led the way in all this?
I'll always maintain that the army has men of character in it. I'll fight for the soldiers' rights as long as I have breath.
Exactly. And that spirit has inspired all of England to think differently about its fighting men. No, Florence, you're not a failure. In spite of the hardship and bitterness, in the midst of filth, suffering, you've brought about a revolution. Florence?
Oh, the mail.
Yes, have a half-dozen letters from your family. They want to know if you'd accept a reception, or shall they meet you privately?
Well, I've told them a dozen times I want to come home quietly and without any fuss.
I know. I've tried to explain that to them. But they do want to know what your plans are.
And if I tell them my plans, it will leak out, and then where are we?
Then 2 bands turned out in full regalia, a coach and 4 decorated with streamers to draw you home, a speech of welcome by the mayor, crowds in attendance.
Yes, I know. And I will avoid it.
How are you going to avoid it, Florence? You're a heroine. The whole nation is crazy to do you honor.
All this buzz about my name. And I can never live up to it, never.
No, I wouldn't say that.
And what would people think when a poor, wasted, skinny little body was all they had to see for all their trouble? Now, I must get home peacefully without any excitement.
But seriously, how do you expect to do it?
You're going to help me?
I'm willing, but how?
Well, we'll get on a boat that nobody would in the least expect us to travel on. Just the 2 of us, as Mrs. and Miss Smith.
Oh, incognito?
It's the only way to avoid clamour.
All right.
I'll go with you as far as Paris, and then you travel on alone.
So you don't trust me either, huh?
I trust you. But, of course, you'll have to let your husband know where and when to meet you.
I know there's no use arguing with you. And you won't let me tell your family a thing?
Tell them I'm well and happy, and that I'll see them sometime soon. Alone, I took the train north in the afternoon, and at sunset I arrived at the station near Lea Hurst. Although I didn't know it, Mother, Father, and Sister Parthy were at that very moment sitting in the parlour, talking things over.
The village people spent most of the afternoon day before yesterday getting archers ready for a procession. Oh, they do so want to have a celebration for Flo, Papa.
And a celebration seems to be what Florence most wants to avoid.
Would anyone like the French doors closed?
Oh, I'll take care of it.
No, don't stir. I hear Watson moving around. I know he'll be glad to shut them. Watson?
What is it, ma'am?
Will you close the French doors, please?
Yes, ma'am. Shall I close those in front of the house, too?
You might as well while you're about it.
All right. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Now to get these doors. This one sticks a little. Oh, I say, is that coming up the walk? I've never seen it. Why, it's Miss Nightingale. Miss Nightingale! Miss Nightingale!
What do you say?
Oh, it's Miss Florence.
Florence?
Yes.
Florence, tell us if we come in.
Oh, my goodness.
Florence, my dear child, welcome home.
And so we conclude Chapter 24 in the transcribed story of Florence Nightingale, The Lady with the Lamp. This is another in the series of Stories of Great Christians, which come to you from the radio studios of the Moody Bible Institute in Chicago.